Hey, welcome everybody. This is a Reversing Labs live stream, and I'm your host, Paul Roberts. I'm the director of editorial and content here at Reversing Labs, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Tomislav Perichin, Reversing Labs chief software architect, obviously a recognized expert application security and software supply chain security. We're here today to talk to you about Shai-hulud. And if you're thinking, oh, cool, we're going to dig into the Dune series or the latest films, sorry to disappoint you. We're actually talking about a pretty serious attack that is playing out as we speak on the NPM open source package manager. And that involves something, a worm that uses the name Shai-hulud, something that we haven't seen before, self-replicating worms spreading through open source packages. And Tomislav is here to tell you more about what we know. Tomislav, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Yeah, unfortunately, the wrong kind of worm we're going to be talking about today, but it is a serious matter. This is the first time actually we've seen self-replicating worms in open source space, specifically targeting npm. The reason kind of why this is a big deal and us and everybody else has jumped on this right away is because the number of affected people is just climbing. I've looked at the blog that we've written, and the number of IOCs as we have it there is about 10 pages long at this stage. Uh, Being a worm, it infects one person, and that person infects others, and it just keeps spiraling. It's very hard to say how many more victims are we going to uncover in the next couple of days.
Sure. And I should note we shared a link to that blog post in the chat. And if you've got questions that you'd like to pose, feel free to use the live stream chat. If you're here in the live stream audience, I'm talking. You can try it also on LinkedIn or X. If you're listening, we'll try and get to those. But if you're here in the live stream, just use the chat. So when we talk about worms in general, Tom, historically, this has been sort of self-propagating malware that spreads, often by exploiting either known or zero-day vulnerabilities in code. In the context of open source packages, what do we mean when we say worm?
Yeah. Oh, well, this is significantly different. People usually think about like in the old days, Code Red and stuff like that, and even WannaCry. They all
Right.
kind of
Sure.
exploit
So
the
big.
vulnerability in the
Yeah.
system to self-propagate and then use that system to kind of infect others. This is completely different. This is an infection of a software package. And then a developer who's developing applications through npm installs that package, and then the package itself launches automatically as you install it. Looks for everything that you're doing. First and foremost, figures out are there any secrets, meaning like environment variables, secrets about GitHub and all this stuff, and it tries to exfiltrate that. But also it looks at the code that you're developing. So if you are also an author, not just the user of the software, all of your packages automatically become infected, and those infected versions get published to npm. So npm in this sense is a platform that enables rapid development, but it's also a platform that is allowing this worm to spread because developers are effectively infecting other developers, and that just makes the whole list even larger.
And the means by which it is able to do that is because it is stealing the developer's credentials, basically,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? And exploiting their access rights to modify the code.
Yeah, correct. Mostly when you're developing software like this, you have like a token that is used to publish a package on the community, and those tokens tend to be used all the time, so they're kind of hidden away as secrets. And that's the first thing the worm looks for. Like if it can get your token, then it can publish packages instead of you.
Right.
And the way it works, like it uses the entirety of your code, and that it just appends itself to the code that it's publishing. That makes it self-propagating. It's literally making copies of itself and publishing that on npm.
And we should note that the name Shai-hulud derives from the actual name of the repo that this code is stored in on GitHub. Is that correct?
Well, the way it works is when it detects your secrets, it tries to exfiltrate them, as I said, but it uses, again, your GitHub account. So if you have an account on a public version of GitHub, so not GitHub Enterprise, that means that you have repositories which might be public, and you have private ones as well. So the
Hmm.
worm takes your credentials and makes a public repository in your account, and it deposits all of your secrets there. But it does worse than that. It also looks at all of your private repositories and flips them to public.
Right.
So if you had secrets committed there, which you didn't want anybody to know about, or you had intellectual property or anything, that is now public as well.
So we haven't seen the secrets specifically being exfiltrated, but we can assume that that is the goal here, correct, of the malicious actors by publishing the private repositories and also collecting the secrets is to harvest them and then reuse them, correct?
Exactly. Yes. So
Yeah.
so you have like I think it's data.json file or something like that, which is
Right.
part of the public information this worm has made about you, and that contains like your tokens and everything else. It's not even encrypted. It's just basically encoded with base64 twice, and anybody who's literally using GitHub's advanced search function can find it, and
Mm.
they can see who the secrets belong to as well. So just by looking at the authors, you can kind of gauge who is affected, like what kind of organization do they belong to. Are they like a student or a developer or like a big company, or like if they're a technical lead? We've seen CTOs getting compromised, and it's a lot of people.
So in our blog post, we mentioned one of the first packages where we noticed this malicious code, where we noticed this compromise via
Yep.
our Spectre platform, and we talk about that. Do we know the means by which at least patient zero was compromised in this? Do we have any idea how this attack began or where it began?
Well, unfortunately, no, there's no concrete evidence to point to one specific infection vector, but last couple of weeks have been hell for open source, if I'm perfectly honest.
Yeah, we'll talk
There's
about that.
been
Yeah.
one supply chain after another, and couple of very common infection vectors were account credentials being compromised through like direct means or just phishing,
Phishing, yeah.
GitHub Actions being the source of point of entry because they had vulnerabilities they could be exploited, and those were recently being used. So I'm not excluding those, but there's no concrete evidence that it happened either of these ways.
Right, right. And what you know, what should we understand about what the big picture is here? So so there are obviously some very high profile packages and widely used packages that have been compromised. Folks may have read about CrowdStrike being attacked. That seems to
Yep.
be part of this campaign. There are other widely used packages. What is the big picture here for developers who might be using or relying on npm? What should they know about what's going on, how widespread this is, and what they should be doing?
Well, as I said, it's not done yet, so it's still
Right.
spreading. But I think we were lucky last week when there was a big software supply chain attack which affected the top 10 packages on npm. These things have literally, you know, hundreds of millions of weekly downloads. And Wiz was reporting that roughly 10% of the cloud workloads that they see was affected by one of the malicious packages or malicious
Mm-hmm.
versions.
Mm-hmm.
If this was happening last week, this would be Armageddon, quite
Mm-hmm.
literally.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we are in a stage where we're lucky that no package which is used as those packages last week is actually affected. But that doesn't mean that couldn't happen in the next couple of hours. We just honestly don't know. Um, so yeah, the my biggest takeaway is exactly that, which is software supply chain registries are source of a lot of goodness. They enable us to do rapid code development, and we can share our
Mm-hmm.
code, and we can grow communities. This is all good stuff, but there is a serious security barrier that needs to be implemented for these things to kind of be prevented from spreading. As kind of like a positive example, I think PyP, the registry which handles the Python community, has like a big red button effectively, and they push it quite often when there's
Right.
a bunch of spam campaigns and stuff goes in a direction they don't want it. I think we need a big red button pretty much on all of these repositories to just like pause and reassess and ensure that we're blocking all these things before they reach developers. There have
Yeah.
been many very important enhancements to some of the clients which install these packages, which effectively allow you to delay updating the packages. So these things kind of spread like wildfire because CI/CD is picking these new packages up all the time. But if you were to delay by a couple of days, yes, you wouldn't have the latest and greatest code, but you would also kind of be safe from attacks like this. Community and people like us usually raise our hands very quickly. And we've noticed this attack yesterday. It was like more than, I want to say, 24 hours ago. Well, more than that, really, when we noticed the first package, but then it started spreading. And just it was like, whack-a-mole trying to find out everybody who's affected. So just delay a bit. That's kind of my advice.
So what did that look like from your perspective and from RL's perspective? Were you just seeing kind of this malware just pop up at more and more packages as time
Oh
went
yeah.
on?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So we do have a free community website where we kind of publish all this information about all these packages, and anybody can go and look up any package. But on the back end of that system, we're getting alerts about every single package being published and all the anomalies. So
Hmm.
how it looked like, it's literally accounts that were inactive for years starting to publish new versions consistently
Interesting.
of everything they had, and they all had the same types of behaviors embedded within them. And they all referenced secrets being stolen and AWS accounts and webhooks and all this stuff, which is completely unusual. One of the kind of canaries in the coal mine, if you will, for us is you have packages which are basically just configuration. They don't have any behaviors whatsoever, but now there's a new version and it does everything. So
Mm.
like that's the red alarm type of a thing, and we well literally get people out of bed to
Mm.
look at it, and then
Yeah.
we start tracing it down. It took us a day to get to a stage where we had like 10 pages worth of affected packages, but that's how the life in a threat researcher
Yeah.
looks like.
Thanks for, thankfully we've got companies like Reversing Labs that are doing this. Might be great if the platforms themselves were looking for those types of red flags so that because obviously they're going to be on it. They're going to notice it before anybody. But
Yep.
yeah. So again, we don't know exactly who or what is behind this campaign, but one thing we noted in our blog post is that there are some similarities, not necessarily in terms of the malware used, but in terms of the methodology of these attackers. And this is with a compromise that happened on the NX platform back in August. Can you just talk a little bit about
Yep.
what similarities you see there?
Yeah, and it's only a couple of weeks ago as well.
Yeah,
So
right. That's right.
NX
August.
is super interesting because it's the first attack in the software supply chain space which actually leveraged the AI. And some people were calling it lazy. I thought it was very creative, actually. So what it did is it looked for if you have any kind of these AI coding assistants installed, like Claude and so on, and it tried to use them, those agents or LLMs, to find your secrets. So it's basically just issued commands to an LLM. Now, the striking similarity between this and you know the attack today is that they're both interested in secrets and they're both using third-party tools, if you will, to collect these secrets. So in NX case, that was the AI. In today's case, it was Trufflehog, which is an open source tool which actually can be used to find over 800 different types of secrets. So it's not as limited as AI. And these tools are used by developers to detect their own secrets and prevent them from getting leaked. So it's kind of been polished off, like filtering out false positives and all this stuff that we actually need is now being used against us to actually, find secrets with pinpoint accuracy. Additionally, the secrets were in both cases published in your own GitHub account publicly for threat actors to kind of siphon through. Now, that doesn't mean it's the exact same author of the malware. It just means that the techniques are strikingly similar. It could be that they've learned from the previous attack and they've adopted the techniques. Maybe the malware didn't spread as much as they wanted. Maybe they've just pivoted to this. But you know it the mistake, if you will, is that you have an overpowered machine by the developer who can do literally anything to build this code,
Mm-hmm.
and you can steal their secrets and exploit that trust in the person to spread the malware elsewhere. I think that's what the threat actors are attracted to.
And the malicious code is in bundle.js. That's a
Yep.
component. Anything interesting when we dig into the code itself? I think we noted in our blog post it's a pretty big uh, script, but
Yep.
anything interesting about how this worm code works, or is it pretty standard stuff?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of bugs in there which I personally found interesting is that it can reinfect you as well. So even if you were infected by one package and another one comes in and you're using both, that bundle.js is just going to get duplicated for every single package that you have. And there was also some other bugs like the manifest file being duplicated and stuff like that. We were kind of postulating, is this an intentional anti-analysis technique? So you kind of confuse the scanner or something like that. Or is this just a bug? We do think it's just a bug. But
Mm-hmm.
the script, as you said, is huge. It took us quite a bit to kind of understand what's going on, to figure out, are there any things that we kind of missed? Uh, and it does a lot. It's trying to get as many secrets as possible, and it's trying to publish those secrets for you.
Right. So we've seen a lot of campaigns in the last couple of years, with basically this agenda of compromise, getting a hold of developer secrets, and so on, or compromising widely used open source packages. Some of them, like the XCutils, clearly seem to be sophisticated, long term, right? Played out over months,
Yeah,
and we tend to associate that with, maybe state actors.
yeah,
Um, this one, as well as the one last week, as you pointed out, pretty noisy and got noticed right away. So,
yeah.
does that tell us anything about who or what might be behind this and what the motivations may be? Espionage versus just criminal activity.
Well, personally, I don't feel like this is a nation state sponsored actor because it is too noisy. There's too many mistakes, and it's trying to do too much, really. So that's kind of how I feel about it. It could be somebody who is not sophisticated, really. I would like because the NX one and the one from last week, they're mostly kind of targeting crypto folks. They want to steal as
Mm.
much cryptocurrency as possible. Now there is a nation state sponsored actor who's very interested in that. Don't get me wrong,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but there's also people who are just
We know who that is.
financially oriented, who are not working for the government.
Right. Right. So that was a question from Wildman. Thanks for posing that question. So, unlike the attacks we saw, the NPM attacks we saw last week, many of which seem to stem from phishing emails around two-factor authentication that were sent to leading maintainers, and we don't know actually whether that was the case in every compromised package, but a lot of them. This one, as far as I know, you could be compromised by this without any interaction with an email or with your NPM account.
Yep.
You could have been compromised by this. So, big question here would be for developers who are working on NPM, what do they need to do to figure out if they were victimized by this, and should they just assume that NPM is on this and has taken down any offending code if they were?
So yeah, no, that's a great point. Like yesterday, as we were starting to track this campaign, we were starting to notify people because we felt like that's the right thing to do, and people weren't really aware. And we heard back from quite a few of them that they were not aware how they got compromised. And for some of them, it was literally some processes updating dependencies automatically.
Mm,
We have wrote about things which are security tools like Dependabot automatically updating dependencies for you, like creating pull requests and merging those pull
right,
requests.
right.
And that was a source of compromise in some of these cases as well. We've, said like, can we, notify as many people as possible? But then it became too much, honestly. So we started to write a blog to try to kind of get everybody aware of that as much as we possibly could. So yeah, this is still ongoing, and we'll kind of have to continue updating the blog as we see more and more packages.
Which we will. So two more. You got time for two more questions?
Absolutely.
Okay. And if folks are online and want to ask a question, now's the time to do it because Tomislav's got a lot of work to do once he gets out there. So, two questions. One is, um, what um, you know, what steps in your mind should open source platforms be taking to be able to prevent future attacks from this? Because one thing we can assume is this is the first time we've seen this, but now that
Yeah.
it's been done, we're going to see more of it, right? We're going to see more self-propagating threats on open source repos. So if you were lead security engineer at NPM or PyPy, what would
Mhm.
you say is changes that need to happen to prevent this type of malware from spreading?
Well, I love what PNPM did, which is another client you can use to install npm packages. Just delaying by a couple of hours or days, your personal preference, I think, makes a very big difference. Vetting packages and kind of allowing people to collaborate more with the platforms, I feel is the right thing to do. Uh, Most people probably don't know this, but you can report malware to these platforms. However, not every platform is as open to collaboration as they could be. Some platforms actually have limits. How many malicious packages can you report per day?
That's crazy.
Obviously, obviously they don't, have the
Why would
staff
you want
to.
to limit that? Like, I do not understand.
Well, it can
You
be
got five
spammed. I, I,
malware?
I
No, no,
get that. I get that. And these
yeah, yeah,
security teams are very tiny. Like
that is
PyPy
true.
has like two people and Ruby Gems has one. So this is all, community
Okay,
effort really.
another conversation, but an important one. But go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. So like, and it I think like investing more from the outside into these security organizations, as I said, like one or two people is not enough. We track about 30,000 software packages being published across these open source repositories every single day. And we have a dedicated team and we have a lot of alarms and we have to review all of them. There's a lot of odd code the developers write for, good or wrong reasons, but it just raises flags and you have to look at them. So working on that part I think is important, but also trying to figure out how do you protect the platform itself. So
Right.
people in the community, they don't really like stricter rules about 2FA and everything else. But I feel like we need to be more receptive of, security being embedded in the process because we do have a responsibility to not compromise our users. Everybody who's a software developer does not want to ship malicious code. I guarantee you that. So if we can do a little bit more to have everybody else safe with our code, I think that's going to be very, very much appreciated. Nobody wants to have a fire drill every week, and right now we have a fire drill every week.
Okay. Final question is, and you kind of raised this issue earlier, and this is something that I think isn't just in the development context. We see it in the kind of network security context too. For years, we've been pushing people to, close that patch window, right, to try and automate software updates and patches, security
Hmm.
patches, to limit the opportunity that malicious actors have. And these days, especially with supply chain attacks, we're seeing the flip side of that, which is, well, if that security update actually includes a backdoor,
Yep.
or that dependency update includes, malicious code, then by automating that update, you are actually exposing yourself. So, what is in your mind, because you see a lot of these campaigns, what would be a happy space for you in terms of the buffer that you should
Yeah.
create for yourself as a developer, development organization around this type of risk?
Yeah. Well, and stuff that we do recommend is living on the bleeding edge is dangerous. You do not want to do that unless
Right.
you really are diligent and you want to review every single thing. I think that's noble, but not everybody can do it. So what we do recommend is you kind of delay some of these updates by a little bit, and I think it kind of goes from the popularity of the project because you have multiple eyes looking at it, including ours. So if it's like a top 100 package, you can afford to wait a couple of days. 3 I think is the right amount. Somebody will notice if somebody has kind of slipped in malicious code right away. That takes hours. But if it's like a bug intentionally introduced as a security vulnerability, which is another nightmare scenario, that will also get picked up in a couple of days. And then you kind of go from there, like, okay, so top 1,000, you would do like a week, and top 10,000, you would do 2 weeks, and everything below that under the highest degree of scrutiny.
Right.
Platforms like ours give you so much data so you can make that decision. So who's using this? How many times has this been downloaded? Is it included by other packages? What else did this publisher, create? All this data is there, and you have to make your own informed decision. Now, as I said, this takes effort, but also the alternative is getting compromised.
The other factor that needs to be considered as well is who is using the code, right? So
Exactly.
if
Yeah.
it's critical infrastructure, right, or those types of applications that are vital for public health and safety, even if the number of downloads is small, the stakes are very high. So that would be the other
Exactly.
factor, right?
Yep.
Tomislav, is there anything I didn't ask you that you wanted to say?
No, I think we'll continue monitoring this. It's going to take a few more days before we kind of uh, declare that we're in the clear.
Yeah,
Uh, but right now it is scary. I'll tell you that.
yeah. We will continue to be covering this and updating both our blog posts, and we'll probably have some new stuff online as well regarding what's playing out. But Tomislav, thank you so much for taking the time today and answering questions, and obviously thank you for all the great work that you do.
Thank you all.
And thanks everybody for tuning in. There are more of these coming, so stay tuned. Follow our blog post, follow our social media, and we'll be sure to link to these. Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Bye.